So welcome to the Velocity Talk road test for the Isuzu D-Max Fury. A little bit different again from perhaps the normal road car tests that you see, but we had the Mitsubishi L200 recently, and I spoke to Isuzu and they were very keen on us having this for a week as well to kind of see what it was like in comparison. Interesting car, far more thoroughbred agricultural, certainly an incredibly capable vehicle, and I have to say I think it's really cool. I don't know whether that matters to buyers particularly, but the Fury model that this is was designed for the more urban, younger market. I'm not urban, I live in a village, however I suppose I sort of qualify as younger, maybe, and it works. The kind of big black sort of writing along the side saying Fury, the big roll bar, the huge floodlights on top, it is really cool if you like that sort of thing. I'm sure some people don't, but it works for me. When you're looking at a 4x4 pickup, a full proper agricultural car like this, performance and handling aren't really important in the same way that they would be with most road tests that I do. 168 brakes, something like that, nearly 170. Doesn't sound a lot for a vehicle that's clearly huge, but bags of torque. 2.5 litre twin turbo diesel 4-pot, loads and loads and loads of torque, and actually enough performance to make it completely drivable. You're not going to want to take this, you know, round a corner at 90 miles an hour, obviously, but it's great. It feels more than enough. You can pull away easily, you can get up to motorway speeds easily. The only downside I say is there's a bit of wind noise when you get up to that level, and the engine is loud. But then, shouldn't the engine be loud? I mean, you can hear that on throttle then. I don't really care that the engine's loud. It's a big diesel. It's meant to be a big diesel. What is really cool is that it actually has a little bit of torque roll when you rev the engine stationary, which is kind of nice. So the bonnet sort of tilts off to the right, which is kind of the preserve of the big V8s or the big American cars. So I think that's quite cool. If you like the idea of driving around in something big, imposing and powerful, then short of getting an F-150 or something like that from Ford with a big V8 in, this really kind of does the job. Handling wise, yes, there's loads of body roll, of course. It's meant to be there. That suspension is meant to cope with the 1.3 tons of load capacity in the flatbed, which is huge. It is a bouncy ride. On low quality B road you are getting thrown about a bit, but yesterday my wife and I took it to our friend's farm and hooned around in tractor ruts and cornfields and stuff, and it really kind of comes into its own there. Yes, it's bouncy, but it's firm enough to be able to take some serious bumps. So what feels perhaps a bit too bouncy on a road, on an undulating road surface, suddenly feels hugely comfortable on proper deep rutted tractor worn turf. It's not turf, on a cornfield. So I think it works. If I'm not a farmer, if you were a farmer, and I tried to make it feel like I was farming to a certain extent yesterday, it actually really did the job. I'm quite impressed actually. I could sort of see myself having one at some point. So we'll see whether I can justify it. Maybe probably need to buy a farm first, but performance is more than enough. The 6-speed is there. If you want to get up to motorway speed, it makes it quite relaxing when you get up to that sort of level. But back to torque, as I said before, does mean quite a bit of gear changing, I suppose, low down. Everything's very low gear to make sure it delivers that. But again, I've never minded. I love changing gear. It's just one of those things, if you like driving, it's kind of part and parcel of it. The throw is long, the gearbox is springy. It feels like, yeah, it kind of feels like a really old Land Rover or something like that. Not in the sense that it's hard work to get it into gear, but the actual gear throw is really heavily sprung. So when you pop it out, it pings and it wobbles around quite a lot. But again, for me, it's part of the ceremony. it feels like what it is. It is an agricultural 4x4, and it is utterly unstoppable as far as I can tell. Zombie apocalypse car it is. So I don't really mind a slightly springy gear shift. I'm not expecting a short throw performance box, so all good with me. Four-wheel drive, very capable four-wheel drive. You got three choices. There kind of should be four. So you can run it in two-wheel drive, fine. Rear-wheel drive, okay for pootling around like we are now. Then you can run it in four-wheel drive, and then you've got a low-range four-wheel drive. That's great. The snag is the four-wheel drive mode is actually a locking diff mode. Now that again is fine if you're just going to some really rough stuff, you need the locking diff. But if you aren't losing traction all the time, but you think you might be losing traction at some stage, you can't drive it around in the four-wheel drive because you're going to get wind up. So at the peril of ripping a prop shaft or whatever in half, it can't be done. So there is no on-road 4x4 option. So if, for example, it was very wet yesterday, a lot of summer rain, so I pulled out of a junction, spun the back wheels a bit more than I was happy with. There's no load in the back, obviously, so I'm not using this as a working vehicle. So it's a little bit light on the back and the wheels spin. So my instinct was then to put it in four-wheel drive and thought, okay, there's a lot of heavy rains, a lot of surface water, let's go 4x4. Of course, then I realised I was going to get wind up, so took that out immediately because we don't want to cause any problems and break the thing. That could be an issue for some people. Just know it when you're going into it. I think we're used to, or I'm certainly used to, X-Trails and CRVs and those sort of things where you have the on-road sort of automatic 4x4 that will kick in if the front wheels lose any traction. So if it gets a little bit squirrely, it gets uncomfortable, there's some ice, there's really deep water, whatever, the four-wheel drive will kick in. So you don't have that option here. Four-wheel drive is purely for really slippy, rough stuff, and then you have the low range. So there is no in between. Not a negative per se, because if you really are using this properly and not like me, then you probably would only want four-wheel drive at that point. So, as any regular viewers will know, I like to do the Tesco Test, which I've actually done quite a few times over the week, oddly. The dutiful father that I am, doing loads of shopping. And it works fine. Do you know what? You can get it in a space. It is big. You know, if you're a bit afraid of parking, that's not one for you. But the parent-child spaces with the extra bit of width, they're perfect. The reversing camera, interestingly, is up in the rear view mirror. That's really cool. So when you put it in reverse, you can look out of the mirror, because that's kind of what I want to do. I find reversing cameras a bit odd. Intuitively, I want to look in the mirrors. So I can now look in the mirror, see the reversing camera view, and see what's behind me as well. So I don't feel like I'm going to run into anything. And it parks fine. Do you know, you get used to it. I don't know about type parallel parking and stuff, I haven't had to do it, but really, do you buy a huge pickup and have parking as a consideration? No. The reversing camera is a nice little touch. I think it's perfectly doable as a day-to-day car. It's not the biggest thing in the world. Load space wise, though, interestingly, can't quite carry as much as a Barbarian, but has a bigger flat area. So for a lot of people that would be more advantageous. But all in all, you could use it as a day-to-day. I have been for the last week, and it's been spot on. Primarily, this was designed and is an agricultural vehicle. There's no getting away from that. You can probably see where I'm bouncing up and down at the moment. You're not going to buy this just to kind of look cool, although I really could be persuaded. However, these days, people have many different roles in their lives. I think people can do multiple things. So if you do anything that needs lugging stuff around, or do a lot of camping, or I don't know, you run a marquee company, whatever it is, if you ever need to get muddy, you really do get the impression very little will slow this down. You've got a huge amount of load space and all that sort of stuff as well. Plus, it's comfortable. Kids loved it. They would sit in the back, very happy to be in the truck, as they called it. The other thing is, because it's a pickup, there are certain advantages to writing off against tax bills and all that sort of stuff. So as a company car, it can be a very, very good option. So if you're in any way considering a 4x4 for like an SUV 4x4 for a company car, consider one of these. It's got the pullover back, so we've got a flatbed there that can be converted and covered over, or you can get the proper big back like we had on the L200 Barbarian. So if you were thinking about that sort of thing and thinking about where to save money, this is a great choice. Don't be fooled into thinking this is only for farmers. I loved it. I've been driving this around for a week and I absolutely love it. I've been desperately trying to find some mud. Thankfully managed to get on my friend's farm, and it was just hilarious. I kind of want one just to take down there every now and again, just for a hoon around in his field. But you could get into 4x4ing with this. You could do a load of green laning. You can put everything you need in it. So in terms of who is it for, it's for anyone that thinks they might need it, or anyone that thinks they could justify it. That might be a better thing, because quite honestly, this is more of a, can I justify having one than do I need one? Because it's cool, and I really want one. So thanks very much for watching the Velocity Talk road test of the Isuzu D-Max Fury. Do leave comments underneath. Always good to get a bit of feedback. I think it's been a really interesting test. I think it's a really cool car. You know, it's not for taking your grandma to church or whatever, as they say. It is bumpy, it is visceral, it's a rugged car, but it's comfortable in here. You feel really safe. In terms of crash statistics, I don't even want to know about what happens when another car hits it. It's just huge, and I think it's really, really cool. It's been a really, really fun test for me. I have to say, I kind of prefer it to the Barbarian, even though the Barbarian was far better spec'd and essentially a nicer car. I just love the capable all-road kind of feeling you get behind this. I mean, I felt pretty invincible in the Barbarian. I feel downright bulletproof in this. So I really enjoyed it. As I said, do put some comments in. Please subscribe. There's a lot of videos coming through at the moment. We're in the middle of editing, so we've got a few sporty Peugeots and actually the L200 review. So look forward to being watched by you again in the near future.